of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sorry about the little verbal stutters down there. We got it now. Roll call.
Commissioner McEntire?
Here.
Commissioner Chapman? Here. Commissioner Peach?
Here. Calvin Bernard is going to be my reminder always to ask my fellow commissioners to speak into the microphone because we're talking to the folks in the back row back there. So I need to remember that. Not an admonition, but just a reminder myself. Request for modifications and approval of the agenda.
We have two. We'd like to postpone indefinitely item 1B. We ran into a little snag with the minutes. And then we'd like to add as item 1C a proclamation recognizing the 225th anniversary of the Coast Guard.
Adoption of the amended agenda.
Second? Moved and seconded. Discussion? Yeah, we'll get the proclamation accomplished as soon as the computer can restore its brain power. It seems to have lost its mind here this morning. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Public comment for agenda items. Henrietta.
Good morning. Kenneth Miranda, 181 West Cyber Road, Francis. I'd like to thank Commissioner Chapman for his comments yesterday about path forward with the grants from the Opportunities Fund. I thought his comments were helpful. And the other thing along that line is, will the MOUs be read pertaining to the Opportunity Funds today so that we could hear what were in those MOUs? Thank you.
I believe they're part of the agenda items, are they not?
Yeah, part of that.
Anybody else? Consent agenda.
Thank you. Item 1A is approval of vouchers for the week of August 3rd. Item 1C is a proclamation recognizing the 225th anniversary of the founding of the Coast Guard.
Adoption.
Second? Moved and seconded. Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Reports and presentations. Commissioner Chapman. Okay. Commissioner Peach.
Just real quick, I attended a meeting in Forks last week, Department of Ecology, and it dealt with drought conditions. And good exchange of information. Unfortunately, one person at the beginning of the presentation wanted to use it as an opportunity to talk about global warming, bit disruptive. But a couple of things that I just share with you. Because of the low flows in the rivers, one of the actions that the Clallam tribe has taken is to stop the fishing because there was actually a real significant problem with the level of water and people snagging, so they've discontinued that. And I didn't realize at the time I was at the meeting that crabbing has also been affected and has to do with demoic acid levels south of the Clallam River. So that's pretty significant impact on the fishing.
I have nothing. Administrator Jones.
Nothing from me.
Contracts and agreements.
Item 2A is an agreement with the Washington State Administrative Office of the Courts for court-appointed special advocates. This is out of juvenile services. All this was discussed yesterday in work session. Maximum amount $65,218. Funds are already in the budget.
Adoption.
Second. Moved and seconded. Discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 2B is agreement with the Peninsula Dispute Resolution Center, and this came from this contract again with juvenile services, as was discussed yesterday in work session. Has a maximum amount of $48,000 for 2 years.
Adoption.
Second. Moved and seconded. This contract does have the appropriate paperwork as a sole source procurement. So, good to go. Further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 2C is amendment number 3 with the Department of Health increasing funding and adding a statement of work for the HIV Client Services Program. All, as we heard yesterday in work session, there will be an increase of $102,154 for a revised maximum consideration of $1,200,681.
Move adoption of amendment 3.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 2D is an agreement with the Washington State Department of Social and Health Services for services to individuals with developmental disabilities, all as we heard in work session back on August 3rd. This is a contract starting July 1, 2015 to June 30, 2016, maximum consideration $697,995.
Adoption of the agreement.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 2E is an agreement with Concerned Citizens for case management services and rental subsidies, fixed fee of $35,000.
Move adoption of the agreement.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 2F is an agreement with the Force Abuse Program for bridge housing and other support for victims of violence, fixed fee $25,000.
Move adoption of the agreement.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 2G is an agreement with Healthy Families of Clallam County for operating costs and emergency bridge housing for domestic violence, sexual assault survivors, grand total $35,090.
Move adoption of the agreement.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
2H is an agreement with Serenity House of Clallam County for case management and other supportive services, maximum amount $59,374.
Move adoption of the agreement.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
2I is an agreement with Serenity House of Clallam County for staffing, rental subsidies, and operational costs of the housing resource centers, grand total $40,500.
Move adoption of the agreement.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
2J is an agreement with the North Olympic Regional Veterans Housing Network for permanent supportive housing units for veterans in Forks, total award $31,130.
Move adoption of the agreement.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And 2K is an agreement with Volunteers in Medicine of the Olympics for basic dental care to the homeless and those at risk of homelessness. Total award $33,905.
On this one, I have to recuse myself, so.
Okay.
Move adoption?
I'll second. Moved and seconded. Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And would the clerk please add to the minutes that Commissioner Chapman recused himself? Okay. Bids and awards.
Item 3A is a notice of call for bids to be received no later than 10 a.m. Tuesday, September 8th for the Clallam County Courthouse LID retrofit project.
Let's call for bids.
Second. Moved and seconded. All in discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Administration.
Item 4A is a resolution appointing members to the Homelessness Task Force, namely Mary Hogan, appointed to fill the unexpired term ending December 31st, 2016, as a representation of healthcare providers. Tom Steffen, appointed for representation of the faith community to fill the unexpired term ending December 31st, 2016. And Carolyn Anderson, appointed for representation of Olympic Community Action Programs to fill the unexpired term ending December 31st, 2018.
Move to approve the resolution.
Second. Moved and seconded. Discussion?
Just wanted to comment, I sit in on those meetings, and thank you. You've got a really vibrant committee. Attendance is high, and as soon as a vacancy occurs, you reach out with finding replacements.
Thank you.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 4B is resolution reauthorizing the expenditure from the Opportunity Fund to the City of Port Angeles and authorizing the chair to execute the Memorandum of Understanding, total amount $285,952.
Move to approve.
Second. Moved and seconded. Discussion.
So I'll just clarify, I don't think my position was clear in the newspaper this morning, so I'd like to clarify my position of opposition to this resolution. I support these projects at this time completely. I don't support the budgeting process we're using. I much more prefer, I think the community would prefer, we know another elected official would prefer going through the normal budgeting process, placing these grants in the 2016 budget, which time there'd be no question as to how they were approved, how the money was approved. So I'll just stand with my position that this should just go through the 2016 budget at this time. And I reiterate my position that I'm not interested in taking any further action against an elected official in any capacity. Never have, never will, not my role.
I will, excuse me, after we dispose of this item here, I'll have some other things to say once we take action on the subsequent resolution. Further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 2-1.
Item 4C is resolution reauthorizing expenditure from the Opportunity Fund of the Port of Port Angeles and authorizing the chair to execute the Memorandum of Understanding, total amount of the award $1 million.
Move to approve.
Second. Moved and seconded. Discussion?
Previous comments, hold for this item as well.
I think it's probably most appropriate for us to vote on this, and then I'd like to just make a statement after we address this agenda item. So, there being no further discussion, all in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 2-1. We've talked about these two grants over the last several months, and I'll just reiterate one last time that we need to keep our eye on the ball here. These two grants are for very worthy projects and appropriate in all respects for spending from the Opportunity Fund. This is the reason why we have an Opportunity Fund, to add funding to cities, the port, in their construction of infrastructure that supports economic activity. So, back to the beginning, the reason why we've been addressing these two items over the last several months is as a way of providing support for increased economic activity in our county. So that's the ball that we need to keep our eye on. This board has adopted, quite appropriately in my view, a very conciliatory stance toward one independently elected county official. But conciliation doesn't necessarily involve capitulation. And so, from my standpoint, the only two options I see available to the board this morning are to proceed with these two grants or capitulate. To resolutions and the memoranda of understanding, the resolutions in particular, don't yet authorize warrants to be issued. So I think it's appropriate at this point for this board to ask of our administrator and our prosecuting attorney to fashion a formal response to the communication from the treasurer's attorney. And I think the appropriate channel of that communication flows through our respective attorneys, prosecuting attorney Nichols and Deputy Jefferson County Prosecuting Attorney Alvarez. So I would ask sort of consensus, I think, of the board to authorize or request that our administrator and prosecuting attorney fashion the appropriate response, and do that with alacrity, because time's a waste. We need to move on.
I'll need some guidance from the board as to the substance of the communication. I'm glad to help reduce that and to relay it to Mr. Alvarez on behalf of the treasurer, but I can't craft that without knowing the substance and what's desired by the majority of the board, is what I'm hearing.
Let me just offer what I believe the...
And we can do that either in open session or frankly in executive session.
Right. My preference is just to go ahead and discuss that in as specific a terms as would be satisfactory, Mark, and then we just proceed. I think we've spent enough time on these two issues. The thoughts that are in my mind are to lay out the process that this board has taken with respect to how we've dealt with the request for both the city and the port in some detail, sufficient to make the point that we have extended many olive branches and gone many extra miles in terms of the public process, so that the public is fully informed as to the reasons why the board is desirous of these two grants going forward, and the legal sufficiency of the process by which the board has undertaken this decision-making. And to inquire of the treasurer as to her intentions if we authorize the warrants, the auditor processes and presents the warrants to the board for its approval, and if the warrants are approved and issued, would the treasurer honor those warrants and release funds? I think that's, in my mind at least, the substance that we need to have an answer to, so that we can understand how to proceed forward, how to move these two things forward. That's just my thoughts.
I would just add emphasis to the fact that the commissioners urged the treasurer to advance this transaction by making payment on those warrants.
And you can make it clear that those requests are from two commissioners already.
And Mark, do you need that in the form of a motion, or is this sufficient for your understanding?
That's sufficient for my understanding.
Thank you. All right. Moving on. Budget.
Item 5A is a notice that the preliminary 2016 Clallam County Budget will be available on September 8th. So in front of you is the public notice. We're asking for permission to
Post the notice.
post it.
Second. Moved and seconded. Discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? 2016 already.
Item 5B is notice that the following supplemental appropriations will be adopted by resolution on August 25th under Enhanced 911, Additional additional funding from the Washington State Military Department Emergency Management Division in the amount of $5,395. And under Health and Human Services, Environmental Health, amendment to the Washington State Consolidated Contract, adding funding in the amount of $16,300. Those are the supplemental appropriations.
Move to post the notice.
Second?
Moved and seconded, discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 5C is notice that the following budget reduction will be adopted by resolution on August 25th under Public Works, Carlsberg Sewer Projects, delays in regulatory approvals pushing project into 2016, a budget reduction of $2,285,952.
Move to post the notice.
Second?
Moved and seconded, discussion. Boy, how I hate to see delays, but I would ask Bob Martin to engage us if there's anything that this board can do to push this thing as hard as we can. You know, time's a wasting on this. We need to get moving on it. So,
We anticipate finishing the design next month, and by the end of the month, the schedule is to advertise for bids. We have 3 permits that are still pending.
great.
So Bob, when the bids come in and the contractor is selected, what point will that be?
It'll be late winter in that period of time.
So is it possible that there would be spending this year?
Well, there will be spending on covering our design costs. There probably won't be spending for construction until spring of next year.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 5D is a resolution calling for a hearing to be held at 10:30 a.m. August 25th for the following debatable emergencies. We have various additional funds needed to cover retirement contribution rate increase, and basically that's every fund that has an employee in it, with the retirement contribution significantly increasing. Total of 107, I didn't know until the legislature passed this budget, $107,994. So under Sheriff, Olympic Peninsula Narcotics.
May I interrupt for a minute?
Sure.
I hate to see you get blue in the face reading this whole resolution. May I ask unanimous consent that we deem the resolution read, just to expedite the process here, and then just move to the vote? Agreed? Hearing no objection. Save you some breath there.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
It's on the website if anybody wants to see it.
Is there a motion?
Approve the resolution.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right. To the next page here. Public Works.
Item 6A is a resolution calling for a hearing to be held at 10:30 a.m. September 8th regarding the proposed vacation of portions of Sequim-Dungeness Way and 3 Crabs Road.
Move to call for the hearing.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Extensive discussion last week in work session. I'm in favor of course, moving this forward to a hearing. My only ask is the Public Works Department undertake some special efforts to affirmatively notify all the folks that are landowners along the 3 Crabs Road there, because this hearing is, for all intents and purposes, the main event regarding this potential road relocation here. The final hearing, obviously, would be a hearing, but it will be, I don't want to say fait accompli, but something close to that, should this project move forward and the road alignment change. Because I can't imagine this board being willing to live with a segment of a county road that's in private ownership between 2 other segments of roads that are in the county's road inventory. So I I just wouldn't be able to vote for that or support it in the event. So I just would like some really special efforts to notify all the landowners in that corridor, just so that they're aware of this hearing and have the opportunity to show up and provide comments.
Just for the record, we, county did notify all the property owners during the shoreline substantial permit process, which the last of the projects that are additional.
You bet. Just no stone left unturned. Thank you. Further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And I do support the project. It's a very, very worthy and worthwhile project for the estuary restoration project. I commend the Salmon Coalition for undertaking it. Next item.
Item 6B is a resolution amending the annual construction program for 2015. In your packet, the resolution says that the adopted construction program did not include 2 countywide safety projects and the Push Road paving project. So the request is to add them to the TIP.
Adoption of the resolution.
Second. Moved and seconded. Discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
And item 6C is a resolution initiating County Road Project C1234 La Push Road, Olympic National Park boundary to Bayak Way asphalt overlay, all as we heard about yesterday in work session.
Move adoption of the resolution.
Second. Moved and seconded. Discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. No community development, no hearings, public comment on anything. Ken? Still trying to get that alder smoke from the salmon bacon swim out of my mouth.
I worked in the water room for 30 plus years, so you know and identify. Country and those things. I thought politics was the art of compromise. I don't see the capitulation and compromising with some of the other elected officials here at the county level. And I'll stop there. We'll see if your method is better. So I'm surprised that we have been talking more about water in these meetings. Again, I worked at the mill. I talked to the Elwha operator for a long time before the federal government took over, getting check in once an hour. So currently the river, Elwha has about twice the flow as the Dungeness, because that's the dry side, it's a smaller river. But here's my concerns. I got 2 concerns. That the agricultural community, let alone the rest of the community on the east side of the county, is going to, especially if you don't have rains for at least 2 more months, and it's going to take a long time to replenish the ground and whatnot, so that this water will run off. So there's wells and there's the runoff water. But you know what, the large farm like Nash, what are they going to do if they don't have water? Let alone the the hay producers or some of the smaller operators. So one of the things that's going on is that food production is moving into structures, old structures, because it uses 98% less water than outside growing. So the other issue is electrical production. We do not have the runoff currently, and in the Columbia system, that was being impacted by wind power a couple of years ago. I suspect that's not happening now, because the hydroelectric generation, I can attest that currently it's probably at 10% on the Elwha if the hydroelectric facility was there. So we didn't have the runoff. We didn't have that surge from the snow melt. So that's why I've been advocating for electrical production, some kind of energy component to these projects that you're doing here at the county level. Because we may make electricity, the renewable component is important because it's going to replace eventually the fossil fuels that, as part of that changeover down there. I went through the energy shock when I was in the boiler room, when oil went from $1.50 to $2.50, and we took on 2 million barrels of oil, you know, to save $1. So I should say 2 million gallons rather than 2 million barrels. We took on 52,000 barrels in over 15 hours, a couple of shifts. But we need to make that transition. So those are two issues. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carol Johnson, Executive Director of the North Olympic Timber Action Committee here in Port Angeles. I'm here to speak briefly on the, actually to the board about the appointment of members to a Forest Advisory Committee. After yesterday's meeting, I went back to my office and I pulled up some items that we had gone through when I sat on the original sustained harvest calculation process, which took 4 years to put together the material, all the public meetings, and to have the Board of Natural Resources determine how they were going to arrive at their final calculation for the sustained harvest. What I would like to bring forth and why I think that a Forest Advisory Council could be beneficial to our commissioners. During that period of time, I learned a lot, but some of it was so far over your head that the average person could not understand the depth of what was going on. But the DNR did a fairly good job of putting together charts and analysis that you could sort of ferret through. And one of the charts that I found was back from November of 2003, which was nearing the end of where they were going to finally select the alternative. But it was a financial analysis, something that is often missing in state and federal documents that an average person can look at to determine what the value or cost of any project might be, set-asides, that sort of thing. There were 6 alternatives analyzed by the DNR during that 4-year process. And nearing the end, they were able to give some values to what those alternatives would provide to the trust beneficiaries, the county being one of them, and our junior taxing districts. And I just want to note that the net revenue to beneficiaries based on some average sales numbers for timber volume went from a high of $185 million to a low alternative of $94 million. So there was almost a 50% swing. It was a $91 million difference between the 6 alternatives, and that's what the Board of Natural Resources was determining then. We got 10 years down the road, and our county is roughly half of the arrearage that the DNR has sustained in unharvested timberland in the past 10 years, which that dollar amount is nearing $75 million. So I believe that a Forest Advisory Council would be able to pick up some of these numbers, look at the history, bring us forward, and at the very least possibly become an advisory group to the commissioners to get ahead of timber harvest that is not occurring, rather than come to the point where we're at right now and be, you know, roughly $75 million in the hole over a 10-year period of time. Not all that money would have accrued to the county or the beneficiaries, but certainly a substantial amount of that would have, and that adds up to real money. So, thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Carol, if you wouldn't mind, if you have a copy of that financial analysis from O3 handy, would you provide that to Trish? That would be a useful thing for us to see, I think. Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Marilyn Turner. I live in Mount Angeles Road. In context, my brother, who went to a prestigious college, what I always remember is that his history book was simply it was a compilation of news stories. And they had to read all the news stories from various aspects and figure out what actually happened. So I thought about this morning after attending your work session yesterday. And one of the things I saw is missing in your news coverage of your meeting yesterday is that clearly the port and the city came to you, and the port simply asked, if we spend this money, can we reimburse ourselves when you give us the money in January? And the answer was yes. So I think that's an important point, that the city and the port were assured they would get their money in January, if you put it in the budget process. And yes, any expenditures that they expend now will be reimbursable. I'm assuming the city has enough money to front load $200,000, and I know that the port does. So I think the language about these projects can't go forward unless you give the money right now is not totally, I guess I'd say, accurate. So I have a couple of quick questions. One is, I apologize, I came in late, maybe you did this already. Did you officially reject the proposal that was sent to you by the treasurer's attorney?
No.
Thank you.
That remains for the future.
That's for the
We did not address that this morning.
Okay. The second question is, I'm a little confused about this action of asking the prosecutor to write a letter to the treasurer saying, will you release the funds? And so, I'm not, because I missed the part where you already voted to release the funds, and I'm a little confused as to what the purpose of the letter is. And if the treasurer says no, then what? And if the then what is to go to court, I would argue that the funds won't be released till January anyway, because courts don't take things up quickly nor decide quickly. And so I'm a little bit befuddled about this whole process. It seemed to me there is a clear-cut, simple way. We're not that far away from January, and we put it in the budget. Seemed to me like a very rational approach. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Ken?
So I attended the court meeting this morning, and they're very interested in finding out where you're headed with the trust lands business. Sounds like they're beyond ready to have something started. We've been talking to the administrator, talks like that. It sounds like as a forest owner, I'd say to you, I'd be interested in participating in that group, at least in the initial scoping of that particular piece of business. And I guess the other comment is along same lines, even though we've had perhaps 97% of our rainfall, we don't have any snowpack. We've had this extended dry period. As a lifetime resident, again, I don't remember in my history, my father, who's 90 plus, doesn't really remember something like this. So the composition of our forest could be changing, or the overall health in general. I'm waiting to see what happens to my forest, but if it dies, and we won't have to worry about logging off forests because they won't be there. The other thing I'm really worried about is fire. My uncle, my dad's brother, participated in the Forks fire, and already we've got the biggest fire that went out west in the history of the park. So we hope that nothing happens. But and lastly, I am really concerned about the logging truck transportation issues on 112. We've the last year or so had trailer trucks. Those guys are really aggressive. We've had one turned over again recently out Clallam Way. So, and it happens, east of me at Dempsey Corner occasionally. So these guys are fast and aggressive. There are certain trucks in particular, but that's a big concern for me because there's more bicycle people using the road too.
Thanks. Anybody else? Seeing no one, that concludes our business for today. We've got no meetings further this week that likely will involve more than one commissioner. So we will adjourn until next Monday, the 17th at 9 o'clock.